That's Alex Jordan and his big band celebrating the release of his new album, Queen Kerosene, at the Sweetwater Music Hall in Mill Valley, California. And here's Alex now to tell us about the making of the record with producer Steve Berlin and how he felt playing his new songs with his old friends.
It was really fun because to turn around and look behind you and see a horn section and your rhythm section and your friends on stage, and then you turn around and look at the audience, and we had a pretty well sold night. It was, like 200 people there, and it was just fun. It was just fun. I had fun. And if you're the band leader and you get to have fun on a big night, that's a good night.
Yeah, there you go. And you mentioned your producer, that's Steve Berlin, and he was there that night too, right?
Right, he was sitting in. So at one point, we had him with the horn section. So we had a 5-piece horn section, plus the 6-piece band. So 11 people on stage. It was outrageous.
Yeah. So how did you and Steve Berlin come together to make this record?
Man, so I started with a management team, Jack Barton Entertainment, a few months before the record. We decided to make the record, and it was pitched that we should get a producer. Of course, I was totally on board, and a couple names were thrown out. And Steve and Jack are old friends, and they'd never worked together, which I was surprised about because they'd known each other for a long time. So Jack asked Steve if he'd be interested in listening to my demos. Steve took a listen. We had a meeting, and I guess independently, I shot Jack a message and said, we don't need to interview anyone else. I really like him. And Steve shot Jack a message and said, yeah, I'll do the record. And so that was like unbeknownst to the two of us. So that was the genesis of it, and that was in January.
It was meant to be then.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. And so we came back and said, okay, do you want to do it in October? And Steve came back and said, how's April? So it really got rolling very quickly.
Right. Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
And so what kind of producer is he? Because a producer can be anybody from sitting around reading the newspaper to like really hands-on and taking over.
He was a wonderful balance. He was tough on me. He was very tough on me. I found myself more nights than not in the middle of the process, going to my room. We were staying in this house next door to the studio. Going to my room and just being frustrated, borderline pissed off, because he was not so hands-on that he was micromanaging notes. We really worked on tempos and feels and general approach, keys and things like that. But then he hired the session guys, and he basically hired me to be the keyboard session guy.
Okay, well, that's at least you got the gig.
Right, at least yes, exactly. It could have been rejected. I mean, there was he said at one point, he said, well, we got to get a keyboard player. I said, well, let me try it. And he said, are you sure? I said, yeah, please. And then after the first thing we did, was the song Emily, and then after that Saving Grace, and then I realized he wasn't calling anybody, he was just telling me to go play a keyboard instrument. That was all very fun, and like all that kind of stuff. He really didn't have too much to say about that, other than kind of keeping people, like the bumpers on the bowling lane, just kind of keeping us going down towards the pins.
Right.
And for the most part, once we got settled on the arrangement, it was good to go. But then we got to the lyrics, and he was tough on me. He was real tough on me.
Okay. So what did he tell you? He didn't like them? There were too many of them, too few, they didn't rhyme?
He wanted a certain aesthetic with the lyrics. I mean, he wanted me to be a better songwriter. And
okay, well there you go.
And I mean I was game, but that doesn't mean it was hard. It wasn't hard, So he would
sure.
we literally, I had everything typed up in a Google Doc. And we sat there on either side of the kitchen table in this house we were staying at, and he highlighted the sections that I was to keep, the sections that I was to cut, and the sections that I was to rework. And that was after we had gotten the basics done. So we liked the structure of the songs. And of course, when he came over to my house to listen to the demos, he was quite literally, I've told this story a few times, and so I apologize every time to him, but he was quite literally hungover from a Grammy party because he had just won a Grammy. So what am I going to do? Tell him no? Whatever you say, man, And I wasn't quite kicking and screaming, but it was hard. It was really hard. Right. And I effectively had to rewrite, some 50-60% of the lyrics. And the example I love to talk about is the song Queen Kerosene. we finished the first week of basics, and we'd probably done 4 songs or so, 5 songs that first week, and we listened to the next batch of demos we had, and he said, these are turning out, the basics that we had just recorded, these are turning out better than we could have hoped for, and so we need to step it up. And so he took this song Queen Kerosene that I had, which was kind of like a B- C+ protest song that I had written, but he liked the chorus, and so he said, keep the name, keep the chorus, cut everything else. I said, everything else? He said, yeah, cut the chords, the melody, all of it. Just try again, but keep the chorus, keep the hook. He liked the chorus. And so I remember I went to, this was like the night before I was heading back to San Francisco. We were in Austin, Texas. And I got back in my room and I picked up my guitar and I was just pissed. And so I said, I'll show that guy. and
I'll write him a song.
I'll write him a song, and I just, in the span of 90 minutes or so, banged out what became the album version of Queen Kerosene, which I showed him in the morning on the way to the airport. So what do you think? He goes, that's much better. That's the direction. Keep working on that. Not even it's good. Just keep working on that.
Yeah, right. You're getting there.
The night I met Queen Kerosene was a hot and humid drag through New York City, and I could hardly breathe. She let herself into my car. We drove until the sun came up behind us, with nowhere to be.
We had 4 or 5 days off. So he had gigs and I had gigs, and in between my gigs, I worked on that song and freshened up some of the other stuff. And when we got back to Texas, 5 days later, we had Queen Kerosene, and we recorded the song. And I said, I think that I want that to be the title. And he said, that's a pretty good title. So that's what we kept.
It is a good title.
But that was the process. I mean, that was not the only song like that, where it was just like, keep this, cut that, keep this, cut that. Like the song "What's Become of Me." There were like 4 versions of that song. The version that's on the record is actually pretty similar to the original version, just with fresh lyrics, and we changed the key. But it was
so
fun.
After watching the video, I got to ask you: is there a Queen Kerosene? Because it seems somewhat autobiographical.
Everyone asked that question. I love it. We even did a recent photo shoot at the show, and my friend Hattie Craven is in the photo shoot with me in the car from the back of the album cover and in the photos and stuff. And so is that Queen Kerosene? I said, you tell me, who's Queen Kerosene? I had someone buy the vinyl the very first day I had it for sale, and it's a gatefold. And they said, are we going to see her? Is she on the inside? And nope, the inside is me sitting on a rock in California, and so who is Queen Kerosene? We've all had a Queen Kerosene. We've all had something in our life that we revered in a way that was also just, you couldn't tell if it was the best or worst thing for you. And, and it sort of ceases to matter when the end result is that you are changed. And so, we've all met a Queen Kerosene, not literally a woman, maybe for some of us. And and I will decline to comment what's autobiographical and what's not. But it's generally it's a story that I contrived from images of experiences I'd had that were not related, but could be made to be related by putting this fictitious Queen Kerosene character, who I've definitely met a Queen Kerosene before, and injecting her into this, creating a through thread from these vignettes, and that's where the story came from. But it's honestly, I more frequently write from a place of experience, and so writing from a place of emotional experience but not literal experience was actually kind of different for me.
Right. All right.
And
it sounds like Mr. Berlin was getting the job done then, pushing you a little bit, huh?
Certainly was. I have a tremendous amount of gratitude for him for what he put me through, almost kicking and screaming.
So that leads off the album, Queen Kerosene. It's followed by a cover of a Jayhawk song, Blue, which is a beautiful song. So what brought that on?
You brought me through, and you stop and look at what's going down.
So, Jack, my manager, and Steve were at a Los Lobos concert, which meant Steve was on stage, and they had been chatting about trying to find covers. They had been sending me covers, and I had kind of turned them all down. I just didn't want to do it, and they really liked the Jayhawks for me vocally. And I told them that whatever we did, we were not going to recreate the song. We were going to rework it, whatever it was. It was going to be fresh. And they had been kicking songs back and forth in the green room before the show or the lobby, wherever they had met up. And this is, I think, in Philly somewhere. And might have been the Philly Fillmore, for that matter. And the story I am told is that Steve was on stage and Jack was in the audience. And one of them, I don't know which one, texted the other one during the show, "How about Blue?" And the other one texted back, "That's a great idea." Which means that Steve was on stage performing when this conversation happened.
And producing your record at the same time.
Oh my God. Ridiculous people. And so it was pitched to me to do Blue, and I listened to it, and I said, yeah, as long as we will work it, let's do it. And so when we got in the studio, we were all on board with that. And we had started in this JJKL kind of a place and went from there. And so there's some of that Tulsa influence in our arrangement of that song. But that's where it came from. They had the idea. They wanted to do a cover. They wanted to pick it for me. And I heard it, and I'd heard the song before, of course. It's such a great song. But I hadn't, I'd probably heard it, dozens upon dozens of times on the radio when I was younger. And hadn't heard it in years and said, oh, yeah, let's do that. That's a great one.
Cool. Now, there's a song called Welcoming Call on the record, which to me, when I first heard it, I was like, is that a cover? Because it sounded like something I'd heard before, but I don't think it is. But,
no, that's fine.
But it's pretty cool. It's got fiddle and accordion, and is that Carrie Rodriguez singing backgrounds on that?
That's right. It's her on the fiddle, too.
Cool.
Austin's own Carrie Rodriguez.
Took my time and I lost my way, lost my mind and I went astray. Heard your voice through the wind and rain, and I heard you calling me back again.
Fantastic. She was great to work with. She came in for that song and for Blue. On the harmony vocal for Blue. And then Josh Baca on the accordion. He's sort of Flaco Jimenez protege. He's his protege nonetheless. So he shreds. I mean, he's like picks up this accordion, he shreds. He's this big dude. He has a band called Josh Baca and the Hot Tamales, and they're like this, Tex-Mex kind of band. I mean, they're really fun. So I just said this is like our rockabilly Zydeco number, So he's got this Tex-Mex accordion, creating this kind of Zydeco thing with the fiddle going on, and I remember Carrie did the take that became her fiddle solo, and she said, "Is it too hoedown?" And we said, "No." And when Josh was doing the accordion, we had him do about 25 solos because every single one of them we said, do something crazier. And he was like, yeah, you sure? You're like, yeah, do something crazy. And we were dying. I mean, he was coming up with this just off-the-wall stuff on the accordion, and we were just dying. I mean, I had a headache from laughing.
The following track, Made to Fall Easy, is a lovely little piano ballad. And then there's a guitar solo, which is kind of shredding. Who's playing that? Is that you?
Trusted completely and knocked down by the things you had learned.
Actually, it's not me. It's actually a lap steel solo.
Okay.
And it's just with a monumental amount of overdrive on it. And I'd have to look at the liner notes to remember the fellow's name, because it was a remote session. He was in maybe Oregon somewhere. And we just signed on to a Zoom, and it was like 30 minutes total. And so I don't even remember the guy's name, but I've got it written down. But
Okay, I'm sure.
it was I feel bad. I should make sure I know that. Anyway, but he was really incredible. It was like a modern style, like a Bill Asher style lap steel, and maybe 8 strings or 6 strings, and he had every pedal known to man, and we just kept cycling through tones till he got one. He did 3 takes, and we combined 2 or 3 of them for the solo.
Nice.
It was pretty.
So why did you record in Austin?
Well, Steve had been working down there on and off. He had just finished a record with Shiny Ribs, and if you're not hip to Shiny Ribs, that's a remarkable. It's the name of a fella named his name's Kevin Russell. I think he lives in maybe San Antonio. I might be wrong about that, but he's down in Austin a lot. And they just finished making this record at the same studio. And this is the studio where the group, the Band of Heathens, owns the studio. And wonderful group of people and a great band and really good sound. It used to be owned by a fellow named George Reef, who was kind of a well-loved Austin bass player. And he had passed away some years before I met the people that have it now with the Band of Heathens. And so Steve had been having a great time working there. He loved the sound. He loved the space. It came with a house next door that we could stay in. And the engineer there was a guy named Jim Valentine, and he was just a really amazing engineer. For the audio, recording audio files out there, he has a company with a partner of his called Coil Audio, and they make these amazing vintage-style tube mic pre's. And so he had all this vintage kind of gear and that he brought in addition to what was already in the studio, and it was just really fun. And on top of that, the Heathens have one of every guitar known to man.
Nice.
And all these very cool amps and these custom guitars and they had a Hammond, they had a Wurlitzer, a Rhodes, and nice sounding room, and it was a great move. And I had made some suggestions for studios, and Steve was pretty adamant about Austin, so I went and checked it out. It happened to be in Texas for my best friend's bachelor party that I was hosting,
Nice.
and so I stayed a day late and went over to the studio. And I was going to ship like a dozen guitars and amps and stuff down. And I took one look in there and said, we don't need to ship anything. We'll just go.
There you go.
And so it was really great. But that was Steve all the way. That was his call, and that was really a great call.
Cool. Now, you mentioned your dad a little earlier when we were talking. He was a high school music teacher. So what was that like, having all that music-related stuff around the house when you were growing up? Did you want to rebel, or were you right into it?
A little of both.
All right.
My dad and I joke that he never really taught me anything because I was such a difficult student, and I'm fairly independent. I ended up majoring in music education, so there you go. But I just wanted to figure stuff out myself. And what I think I undervalued when I was younger is that I would show interest in something, and then one of those instruments would show up. So that was really good. At one point, I started to play the trumpet, and he played the trumpet. And then I realized that he played the trumpet, and I got a little older, so I didn't want to play the trumpet anymore. And so I switched over to the tuba, which was really fun, by the way. Great instrument. Yep. And I think that gave me a love for low brass, and I think if I were to trace my adoration for New Orleans music, it probably starts with my playing the tuba. And but then I was informed that I couldn't be in the jazz band and play tuba. It wasn't a Dixieland band, so I learned the trombone, and I fell in love with the trombone. And I got really into jazz, and I played a lot of jazz for a long time. But that was all. He would I would express interest in something, and he would help me. He would provide an instrument, and I don't think I appreciated that enough at the time. I mean, I was a kid,
Right.
I didn't understand that he was helping.
Yeah.
But then I was in high school, and I was in his band. I went to the high school where he taught.
Oh, geez.
And I wasn't just in his band. I was in his jazz band at 7 a.m., his symphonic band at 8:15 a.m., and his choir at 9:30 a.m. So I had 3 periods a day, 5 days a week for 4 years. And then on top of that, he was the music director for the musicals, and I was a theater kid. So we saw each other after school.
All right.
So it was not always the easiest, but we had a lot of fun playing music together. You know, we got to share in some triumphs together. And I really, when I wanted to go into college, he was instrumental, no pun intended, in helping me prepare my auditions. And
Nice.
and I ended up singing in college, but all of that, I mean, it was really, I have a lot to thank him for. And even now, as we get our release show, I wanted to do an encore. And we had this one encore plan. I did this kind of cover of I Feel Fine that I actually stole from him. It's like a reworked take on I Feel Fine and by the Beatles. And I wanted to do Tulsa Time, get people boogieing to, you know, close out the night.
Yeah.
I did a little duet with my duo partner, Hattie. And then we were going to do Tulsa Time to close it out. And I just realized on Sunday morning, or, you know, maybe it was Tuesday morning. I don't even remember. I said, crap. No, it was Sunday morning. I said, we need horns on this song. We need horns for the encore. So I texted. I said, Dad, can you write up a chart? I was at 9 a.m. and he said, hang on, I'm in the middle of something, but I'll get to it. And the next text was, here's the chart. And a couple hours later. And so he wrote a horn chart for Tulsa Time. No questions asked. And
Nice one.
in my last band, he played. He helped me with. I mean, I did the horn arranging in my old band Midnight North. I wrote the horn arrangements, and then had him play the trumpet. So we've been on stage together with him doing that. But it was pretty cool for him to do the horn arrangement for the encore. Just, you know, a moment's notice. It's a love language.
So can you play pretty much any instrument? Can you just pick something up and play it now? It sounds like you play anything.
I hate that phrasing of it, because there's so many instruments.
Yes, there are a few.
I'm a terrible drummer, but I'm practicing.
All right.
No, I can't play any instruments. I have things that I love. And I love learning instruments. I love learning about music and how stuff functions. And I had the teacher brain, which is why I went into music ed. Right. And before I left my day job, my last day job was teaching at the School of Rock in San Rafael, California. And I had a great time working with young students and adult students too, just teaching people music. And I'm a student of music as well. So I think that my interest in learning instruments drove me to just, we're going to play this, we're going to play that, we're going to play that, we're going to play that. And I would get to a point where I would find my level of enjoyment of it and then kind of want to move on to something else. And the first instrument that I truly stuck with, I guess the trombone for a number of years, but the guitar. And when I learned guitar, I was 17. It took me that long to get to the thing. And I got to that. But before then, I'd learned the bass and the ukulele, which they're related skills to the guitar. And the brass stuff, it's all related, So it's not like I'm learning something that has no related skill. Brass is just a matter of learning to read in a different register or stuff like that. And I definitely have the addiction to learning musical instruments. And I have the obsession with learning them, and but when I joined my old band Midnight North, I was the lead guitar player and a harmony singer, and then they found out I had taken class piano in college.
All right,
and I was messing around, and I was messing around with an organ patch on the digital piano, and then they said, you got to do it, you got to play, and so over the course of like 4 years, I became the keyboard player.
Right. Gotcha. All right.
But at that point, I sort of I would like to get good at these few instruments. So I've stopped my obsessive learning of things. And I really just,
right.
I see oftentimes I'll be, in a review or something. I'm flattered. It says, multi-instrumentalist. And I'm flattered, but I also, it's just it makes me seem pretentious. I don't know.
But it does give you the potential to pretty much record an album where you play everything.
Well, that was my previous record. I was having a hard time scheduling people, so Sean, the drummer in my live band, and we were it. And so we recorded the basics with drums and him. And I had two bass players play on a few songs, but I played bass on the rest of the songs. I played keyboard on all the songs, and the guitar on all the songs, and I played trombone and the horn arrangements for that record. So I did that. I've been there, done that.
All right, very cool.
Yeah.
So, are you thinking of the next record? I mean, it was like 4 years between this and the previous. So,
Right. I
where are
am.
you at mentally?
If I'm being honest, I am. I've been writing like crazy, which
Okay,
doesn't mean
good.
any of it's any good. It just means I've been writing.
Yep.
And you know, I would love to get back into the studio and do it again. As awfully painful and difficult and trying, and like you just wanted some days quit. I can't wait to go back. I can't wait to do it again.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll see what happens. Are you going on tour, or what do you got planned for the rest of the
Well,
year?
we're on tour now. We're down in Southern California. We did the local leg. We had 3 dates in the Bay Area, and now we're on the SoCal leg. And like we played San Diego, and then last night we played Los Angeles. Tonight we're in Huntington Beach, and then tomorrow we're in San Luis Obispo. And then we have the one Bay Area date that's a different band, and then we go up to Chico, which is like in Northern California, and then
Right.
in the foothills in Northern California, and then I'm off to Nashville, and then it goes on from there.
Woohoo!
It's like
All right. Very good.
we're on the tour.
Well, someday you have to come down south again and visit this part of the world. And
What's funny is with the modern gizmos here, I can look at where people listen to music, and the vast majority of my streams are in Melbourne and Sydney and Auckland and
really,
yeah, that's where people are listening to my record the most.
well, there we got to
Got
go
a
there.
passport, let's go.
Yeah. Well, most Americans don't.
Well, they need to get out more.
Very good. All right. Well, hopefully we'll see you down here sometime. So, and thank you for spending all the time talking to me and explaining everything.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Sounds like things are cooking along.